this tutorial, I'm going to share with you how I create makeup textures in Procreate for using in Lens Studio to make makeup filters. Let's get started. Usually when I'm making a makeup texture, what I'll do is I'll import the wireframe on top of this. And so I'm just going to go and add that in now. Okay, so now I have my wireframe here. We could see it lined up where the inner corner of the eye, the outer corner, the eyebrow, everything there is pretty much connected. So you can see where the nostrils are. So what I do is I usually draw makeup on top of this, and I take this wireframe and I'm going to lower the opacity of it by clicking on the N and then taking this opacity and dragging it down to be pretty low, just so I could faintly see it. I'm going to go and turn on symmetry. The way I do that is go to the settings tool up here, and then I go to canvas and then turn on drawing guide. With drawing guide turned on, I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to scroll all the way to the right here and click on symmetry. You can make the line thick or thin. Done. So now my symmetry is turned on, so whatever I draw on this side is going to show up on that side and vice versa. So what I'm going to do is add a new layer, and I'm going to start, I usually start by drawing the eye makeup actually, or I'll do the contour, whichever one I feel like kind of starting with, depending on the look I'm going for. So let's say I'm just doing like an eye makeup look, like we are right now. I'm just going to go and I'm going to add this new layer, and I'm going to click on Drawing Assist to make sure that the symmetry is turned on. If you want to turn off symmetry, just make sure that Drawing Assist is unchecked, but we're going to keep it checked. And so for brushes, there's a lot of brushes that are part of Lens Studio that are pretty good. You could also... bug. You could also buy brushes on other websites like Etsy and Gumroad. There's many stores out there. I think ArtStation, like I forget the names of them, but they have a lot of brushes. So I've got a lot of brushes I can recommend that I like using, and I'll definitely leave that as well. But by no means do you need to buy brushes, but I prefer buying brushes. Some brushes that are included that are pretty nice just simply are the airbrushing brushes and the inking brushes I use a lot for things like eyeliner. So I would usually start though with the way I do makeup in real life. I start with doing the eyeshadow. And so I'll actually start with the lighter colors. And so let's see, my assisted layers turned on. You can name them, but I'm not going to name them for this tutorial. So I'm just going to draw a light color here. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It could be like, you could adjust the opacity over here, and then you could adjust the size of the brush over here, the upper one. And so it doesn't have to be perfect because we could kind of smudge and erase however we want it to look. And I like symmetry in Procreate because you can smudge on symmetry, which I don't believe you could do in Photoshop, although I might be wrong. And so I'm just going to delete a little bit of this. And just, this is kind of what I do, is I just kind of like erase and smudge everything into place however I like it. And then you could also even blur it by going and adding a blur like that, just to make it really soft. And then continue to erase where you don't want it to be. Like I don't want it to get too close to the lash line. So that's why I'm erasing there. And so now I'm just going to do a brown neutral makeup look. This is a chocolate brown makeup. Has been kind of trendy right now. And I'm going to make this brand new layer. I'm going to turn on Drawing Assist, and I'm going to draw the shadows. And so I'm just going to wrap the shadows around here. Maybe even a little underneath the eye. And then just again, just smudge it into place. You can make the brush for smudging a little bit bigger to get a softer smudge. And remember, you could always erase if the opacity is too high, like this. This has kind of got that like 90s kind of makeup look. And this is, again, just using a free brush that we have as part of Procreate. And so now I really like how this looks. So I'm going to go and add a little bit of eyeliner. And again, you could also add things like, you could add some glittery eyeshadows. They don't really have anything in Procreate that I would use as like a glitter. Some of these are okay, but I really do like my purchased brushes. Like, let's see where they are. My favorite makeup brushes. This one you could see is by, I don't think it's actually listed here, but this one is by a different designer. So I'll try to find it where I got it from, but I could take that and I could just add a little dusting that gives it some texture. And so I'm just gonna add a little bit in the inner corners of the eye, and then maybe even a little bit right underneath the eye where the iris goes. And I'm just gonna erase again over here so it doesn't get too much near the eyeliner. Okay, and so what I would usually, oh, I didn't even symmetrize that, so I'm gonna redo it. So I'm just gonna add some of this glitter brush here. It's Shine number 5, and I'm gonna make sure symmetry is turned on, drawing assist. I'm gonna add some of that dusting right there. And I'm gonna do a little bit in the inner corner and just on the line and on the edge right there. You could also do your glittering with the same thing you do for your glittering, you could also usually do for your highlight on the nose and on the cheekbones and stuff too. So you can make it all the same texture instead of separating it. So I'm just gonna do that together here. I'm gonna add a little bit to the cheekbone over there. And so now you could see when you look at it separately with all these other layers turned off, you could see the makeup that we've started, and you could see the highlighter by itself is pretty strong. Usually I like to add a little bit to the lip as well. So I'm gonna go and just lower that brush, make sure I'm in my highlight layer, add it here, just a little dot there. And that should be good. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and add some eyeliner. And so now make sure I turn that layer back on. I'm gonna turn on Draw Assist. I'm gonna go and grab an eyeliner brush. And so there's a lot of brushes I like for eyeliner that are, again, ones that I purchased in random sets. But you can use the inking brushes and sometimes even use the studio pen for your brush. And so I'm just gonna make that pretty small. See, it's a little bit sharp. And it looks like it's not working the way it usually does. So maybe I changed it. But you could even use anything like a technical pen. And I'll show you just what to do with just that. So with our layer, turn on Drawing Assist, I'm gonna get in pretty close by taking my fingers and just stretching. And I'm just gonna just draw that eyeliner on. And with the eyeliner brushes that are already pre-created, you could usually do it in just like one swipe. And it'll look really nice and natural, but since I'm doing it with the studio brush, it's a little bit harsh, so I'm just gonna smudge it till it looks like really realistic looking. So by using the smudge brush, I can kind of give it that soft edge, and I can kind of move it exactly where I want it. Smudge out the layer near the eye. And again, erase. You could also change the brush that you're using for erase, but I like to keep it on that soft brush. So I'm just gonna erase, fade it to the edge. And there's my eyeliner. And so one thing I like to do with eyeliner sometimes, or just in general with eyeshadow, is take a brush like the airbrush and just kind of like add a little shadow so that it almost looks like the lashes are leaving a shadow underneath them, which kind of also softens up the eyeliner a little bit. You could also make your eyeliner not jet black. You can make it like a dark brown. Sometimes that'll really make it look like a little bit more natural. So another way you could do that if you already made it black like I just did is you could click this, you could set it to alpha lock, change your color to a dark brown like this. Like almost black, but not black. There. And I'm just gonna make this a big brush and I'm just gonna color it like that. Since it's on symmetry, it'll color both sides. And so now it's a dark brown rather than black, and it's gonna look a little bit more natural and realistic looking. Oh, I have to turn off the alpha lock. And so now I'm gonna go back and just draw in a little bit of eyeliner. Or just kind of like a smoky eyeshadow, just so that it's not too stark above and too light below. Now I'm gonna go and add another layer, turn on symmetry, and draw those eyelashes. And so now, let's find a good eyelash brush. So I'd rather use a really good eyelash brush, so I'm just gonna feel around. This one's okay. I definitely recommend checking out different eyelashes. There's these, let's see, these, single lash, maybe that one would be nice. Let's try that. Okay, well that'll do for now. So what you could do is just kind of like press and then let go. So instead of like pressing and holding, like like this, which would make it too thick, you could press very gently and then kind of like whisk away from the iPad. So you're kind of like pressing and then lifting your hand. And the more you kind of like let go and gentle that you press, the softer the eyelash is going to be. So you kind of want to just practice the momentum of where your hand is going. And you'll kind of get the hang of how to draw them, but it's a very like delicate stroke. Almost like so light. And these are even a little too much, but that's just an example of how you could do eyelashes. So I'm gonna go and find a really thin brush. Let's see if I could use this one. It might be too thin. Like this. Let's try. Brush like that's kind of nice. Right, so what I'm gonna do is turn on the symmetry. I'm gonna make the color like a dark brown. And I'm just gonna draw them like this. So that they're just kind of like gonna accentuate where the person's lashes already are and not be like too dramatic looking or too hand-drawn looking. And you could also, again, take these and kind of smudge them a little bit. And so now we have like a natural looking lower lash. And so now for eyebrows, I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna take a similar like lash brush. And you don't really need to do much for eyebrows. You don't need to hand draw them because you don't see the eyebrow hair. Like on a person's actual eyebrow, it's too blurred. The camera resolution is too low. So I usually just like do a couple of hair strokes like this. I'll change this brush. Just a couple of brush strokes, and I'm gonna take the inking again. I'm gonna put back a studio pen. I'm just gonna bring it down in opacity and just kind of like color over where the brow is. And then I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna blur it really simply, like that. And now I have a nice eyebrow, and I can remove this to see what it looks like by itself. Continue to fine tune it because it's a little blotchy right now. You can make that brush real thin and kind of smudge those hairs back into it if you even want to, just like that. Right now I'm still using that smudge brush to just kind of like smudge the color that's already laid down, kind of like pastels or charcoal. Okay. So now I'm just gonna lower that opacity, and that would be the way I would probably import it. Take this and just really soften that part up because you don't want to have this harsh line inside the program. You always want to have kind of like the softer starting area over here in the corner. Okay, so that to me looks good. So now bringing that back, I'm going to draw the lipstick. And so what I would do for that is I'm going to go and add another layer, which I would name normally, and I'm going to make it a pinkish brownish color that's very like 90s reminiscent. I'm gonna use just a regular studio brush. I'm just gonna outline what I have already done here. Okay, and now I'm gonna take that, I'm just gonna blur it really simply like that. Take the erase, and I'm just gonna soften up these edges a little bit more. Just erase a little bit on that edge, just fine tune it. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of a lower opacity inside the lip in a brand new layer because I don't want to mess with that really nice lip liner. And again, I'm just kind of doing a very messy lip right here so that it just has kind of like a natural, realistic kind of feel. Because if it's too perfect and too sharp on the outline, it's not going to look realistic and people are going to be turned off by it. So I'm just going to soften it up also towards the middle. People usually like their lipstick and felt and filters like a little bit more of a ombre look. So now I'm going to take that, I'm going to drop the opacity down here. Then I'm going to take this lip liner, just lower that even more. Drop the opacity of that. So now it's just a faint lip liner. You can see here, it looks really nice. Now I'm going to go into my contouring. And so I have a contour kind of laid out here of where I found the contour to be most flattering. But you could do your own depending on your own face and your own preferences. So I'm going to go and find a color that's kind of a reddish brown like this. It's not too brown or too dark. Might just be a little bit not warm enough. Like, so you need to make it on the warm side like this. This is a nice warm contour color. So I'm just gonna make it a little bit warmer than that. Let's see. Okay, that's nice. This color right here. And so I'm just gonna draw really basically where I think the contours should go. I usually do like where the lip liner is. Sometimes I'll do even in the middle of the whatever that thing's called on the upper lip space like this. And then I start to just kind of like use the smudge brush to smudge it out. Just like that. Make it a little darker. I'm gonna go for an airbrush brush, soft brush. I'm just gonna bring it really low. And just continue to make that contour a little bit deeper. I'm gonna contour on the sides of the eyes for a little lifting. I'm gonna add a little bit of contour here. This is a little too dark for the cheeks, so I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna go back here and just kind of like add here. Nice. Okay. I'm gonna take it and I'm just gonna blur it out. Make this not too sharp. You want to have your contour be like very soft and subtle. And so now I would typically add brush just above where the contour is, just like in real life. A little blush. So let's go and add that in now. I'm going to take the blush, and I'm actually going to do it separately so I can control the opacity inside Lens Studio. And I'm going to turn it to be like a very flattering pinkish tone like this. I'm going to draw here. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to actually blur it. Let's go back to my contour, and I'm just gonna bring the opacity down just a little bit and erase. Okay, so now my makeup's looking pretty good, and I can now take this and just kind of like continue to fine tune it. That's what I usually would do on this white background, just so that it looks really clean. Right now I'm adjusting the eyeshadow just a little bit to soften it up. You could always adjust in Photoshop too as you get it back in the program. And so now that's my makeup. So now we have to bring this into Lens Studio. And so when you make a makeup texture and you have it separated in layers like this, you have to decide what's gonna be together and what you're gonna take apart. So usually what I do is I like to kind of think about it in terms of the settings that I'm gonna use. So if I'm gonna keep the same settings, I can merge certain things together when I export it. So eyeliner, I could usually keep with dark eyeshadow because it's gonna be on the same setting. And highlights, if there's any highlights that are done separately, I'll bring them together because I'm gonna put it on the same setting as well. And if there's eyeshadow or anything that's going to be kind of like left to be a colorizing type of thing, or it's not going to be an add to lighten or multiply to darken, I'm going to merge that type of thing together. So just showing you what I would do here is I would kind of separate. So I turn off all the layers. And so I'm going to take them, and you have to turn off your background layers when you're exporting. So I'm going to take this and I would export this by itself. And so I would go to click the settings thing here and go to share, save it as a PNG. And then you're gonna save it as a PNG, and then you could send it and airdrop it right to your computer. And so now I'm gonna take these other ones, the eyeliner by itself. I could also keep those little eyelashes that we did. Then you have the eyebrow and the eyeshadow. I would potentially keep these together. And then you go and you want to export the highlights of the eyeshadow alone so that you can control the opacity inside Lens Studio and adjust whether you want them to have a shine or not. Then you could go and do the same kind of thing with the contour. Usually I combine contour and blush. And you could kind of see how the contour looks on a white background like this. Turn off my eyebrows. And so yeah, you could export the contour and the blush together. Maybe even take the lip liner, and I might move the layering of it to above the lipstick so that it's a little bit darker. And this is how the lipstick looks by itself, and I would just export that alone. So now I just need to export these layers, and I've merged the layers that I want to be used together, the eyeliner, lipstick. I have 6 different files right now that I'm going to bring into Lens Studio and show you how to set the settings up for them. So to export them, all you need to do is click here and then go to share, and then you could share as PNG files. And this will share each image that's here that is open, checked off, and visible. It'll share them as a separate PNG. And then you could airdrop them to your computer. Now that you have all of your textures created, you're going to need to import them into Lens Studio. And the way that you do that is you just go here and click the plus sign and hit import file. You can import all those files at once, or you can drag and drop them right into the resources panel. So then next what you're going to need to do is add a head binding with a face mask underneath, or face mesh, underneath the camera. And so what you're going to do is click on camera and then click the plus sign and then face mesh. So what we're going to do first is we're going to replace the material. And so I'm going to take this face mesh and I'm going to replace this material with a new unlit material. Then with that, I'm going to just show you how to set the settings up for that. So we're going to turn off the depth settings, and then I'm going to change the blend mode to multiply. If you don't change it to multiply and you leave it on normal, it won't adapt in different lighting conditions. So if the person's sitting in a dark room, it'll look very bright on their eyeliners and their blushes and stuff like that. It also helps make textures adapt to different skin tones if you set it to multiply. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this one eyeliner. Then I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to take this texture by clicking on that and then looking for the eyeliner texture. So now I have it. My textures most likely are going to need to be adjusted because once you make them in the program in Procreate, it's hard to tell how it's going to sit on the face exactly how you want it. So you have to adjust them as you create. So I'll show you how to do that after. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add in a couple more of these. So what I'm going to do is go to just duplicate the steps. Or what you could do is just duplicate this. And you could right click it and duplicate. And then just make a brand new material again. So only reproduce that step. And then click on that one, make it multiply. And then we're gonna add an eyeshadow. And now I'm gonna just rename that. And then I'm gonna duplicate it again. And then I'm gonna rename it lipstick. And we'll do adjustments and stuff after. Okay, so now for our highlighter and our light eyeshadow, I'm going to add 2 new materials. And so for this one, I'm going to set this to add because it's a highlighter, and I'm going to select that texture. And now you can see it's light. If I were to have this on multiply, we wouldn't see it at all. And so let's set this to add, and I'm going to lower the opacity to about 17. And then in the light eyeshadow, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. Right, select that one, set it to add, and then base texture. And now let's look for my light eyeshadow. I'm just going to bring this down in the opacity a little bit. And now I'm going to go back and adjust some of these other textures. And you can take it on and off and see the difference of the makeup makes. There's no face warping or anything like this. It's just makeup. And so now going back to my contour, I'm going to lower the opacity of that one just a little bit. And then going to my lipstick, I'm going to go back and adjust the opacity because it's a little bit, my lip liner is a little bit dark. And then I'm gonna go and do my eyeshadow and adjust that opacity to bring that down to be a little bit more natural looking. And then for my eyeliner, I'm gonna adjust that here as well. And so now I could toggle through videos to see how it would look on myself. And another thing that we see is that the eyeliner is getting kind of cut, so I have to make some edits. But first what I could do is go into this face mesh by clicking on it here. And then adjust this thing so it's checking off that it's not cutting anymore out the eyes. So the eyes aren't being cut out. So that, see, let's show you the difference there. So you can see it's being cut. That means that's where the face mesh has a hole in it, where the eye slots are. So we're gonna check that off. And I do the same thing for the lips, for ones that have lipstick, but you probably won't see it here because my lips are just lip liner at this point. So let's go into the eyeshadow and do the same thing. Or not the eyeshadow, the eyeliner. Okay, wait, it actually did that for all my textures. Okay, perfect. So yeah, so that's basically it. That's how you import your textures. That's the first step, is doing them without any kind of settings. If you need to adjust them additionally, if you see that the fit looks off, like maybe the lip liner is a little bit too outside the lips, what I would do is you're gonna save this project first, because right now I can't right click this and edit it. I have to actually save it as a project file. So I'm gonna do that. Okay, so now that my project is saved, what will happen is you can right click on it and now you could see show in Finder. So it actually creates a library for this project so that you could actually right click it, go to this texture, take it and open it up in Photoshop. Without saving it, you won't see this option here. And so I like to use this option because I like to edit and save and then see how it changes the actual project in real time. So I'm gonna take this texture and I'm gonna open it up in Photoshop. So now here, what I'm gonna do is, since I notice it's a little bit too dark, I'm gonna make it a little bit lighter. I have it locked right now so that I'm coloring on the texture alone. Then I'm gonna unlock it and now I can make adjustments. By clicking here and now using the smudge tool, I'm gonna smudge this down. Let's see if that changed it. Okay, that looks a little bit better. The lower lip needs to be pulled out just a little bit. Okay, so that's looking much better now. And so I'm gonna actually take this and I'm gonna blur it. And so now it's a lot more of a subtle lipstick. And so clicking on it here, let's make it a little bit darker and see if I could see it better. So now even with it in a darker opacity, it's not as harsh as it was before. And so that's it, basically. This is the first step of creating digital makeup and then revising as you go in Photoshop. The next step beyond this is starting to add normal maps. You can add things like glitter and add lip gloss, and we'll do that in another video. And I'll show you how to create a normal map and then how to use that normal map in Studio. But this is the first step. Okay, I'll see you in the next tutorial.